Oh yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have the emotions, and then that affects obviously how you think about it, and then how you behave in the situation, right? And so, typically speaking, the emotions are the thought patterns that you're having are based on typically experiences that you've had before, if not like cultural conditioning or social conditioning, religious conditioning, these kind of things, right? So, for example, if say you were a Muslim, right, and you were presented with alcohol and you were told that if you drink it, you're going to hell. When somebody pulls out, right, some people believe that, right? Of course, I've met people that believe this. So, if you pulled out a bottle of alcohol and poured it in his cup, he's going to have a very emotional reaction, fear, anger, or something like that, right? Whereas me, if you did it to me, then I'd be like, oh, cool. I would have a happy reaction. I would ask what kind of alcohol is it. I would appreciate. So I would be in a positive state, right, emotionally. Whereas the other guy, but it's literally the same experience, right? It's literally the same situation, right? And so therefore, why are we having different emotional reactions or thoughts about this? Is due to our conditioning, right? And so you have to. That's why I think that I mentioned that you should do the past authoring program, because what it does is it makes you break down all of the like your life from beginning to now, right? And then it breaks down into epochs basically, or periods, right? And each period, it could be like 1 to 5 years old and 5 to 10. You have to kind of choose like what were the major experiences that you had, or conditioning events that happened to you that formed how you think and how you feel right now, right? So, for example, in the case of the Muslim guy, maybe it would have been, his parents told him you're going to go to hell when he was 10 years old or something like that, right? But, just an example, right? But in your case, you obviously want to write down, what, like, when you were younger, what did people tell you about girls? What did your family, what did your mother, father, other family members, friends, society, like what is, for example, when you were younger, what did Malaysian society say about dating? What did they say? It's like, oh, you should stay in your league. You know what I mean? Like you should date only your race or something. I personally don't know, but well, okay. Well, here's the reality. So you can write that. This would be a good activity or exercise to do, right? So you can write that belief out, like, okay, what is a limiting belief that I have, right? So this is actually, I recently posted a blog about this, like how to reframe your limiting beliefs and thought patterns that were imprinted on you, and then how to sort of integrate them and release them, and then how to make them into beliefs that serve you, right? Or thought patterns, emotions that are in your benefit rather than against you, right? Basically, as you're mentioning. So in this case, you mentioned it was your uncle mentioned that uncle, right? Okay. So yeah, so your family members, your uncle, your mother, or whoever says that like if you don't learn Mandarin Chinese, then you are not going to be successful with Chinese girls, for example. Okay. And so you can write that down, and, I was 13 years old or what have you. And then how did that affect how I think and feel about interacting with Chinese girls, right? So you can even say, even for now, you notice that when you talk to a Mandarin speaker, you feel a little bit inadequate. You feel like you need more Chinese to talk to her. You feel like you're not enough or something like this, right? So, so that's good, right? So you can write that down, and that helps you to see why you feel like that, right? That now you're aware of where this spyware, you could call it, right? um, like where was it implanted on your operating system? It was at this point. Okay, it's like think about it this way. This is almost how I see it in some ways. Is that like when you have like restore to this point in time on your computer, or I think on Apple they call it something else. I forgot. It's like the time machine or something. But anyways, you can like restore to factory settings, or restore to like October 8th, 2020 or something. That's before you got the spyware, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Like these kind of exercises help you to like clean sweep your system, get rid of the spyware, get rid of the viruses, right? And so Yeah, so going from there, now that you know what the belief is, now what would be a belief or emotion that would serve you, right? And so it could be, one thing could be that I'm good enough to approach any girl, right? It doesn't really matter if I can speak. I mean, speaking Chinese or not, I'm still entitled and uh, I'm still allowed to approach any Chinese girl and pursue a relationship, right? And you can look around for evidence because I'm sure there are plenty of guys dating Chinese speaking girls, right? That do not speak any Mandarin. They could be like native Malay, they could be just Chinese Malaysians who do not speak Mandarin, they could be other races or something like that, right? And so you have evidence that it is possible, at least, right? At the very least, okay? And so going from there, okay, it is possible, therefore I can do it, and it's not necessary, okay? So therefore, when I approach a Chinese speaker or Chinese Malay, I do not need to speak Mandarin, okay? It's not necessary. I can still have success even without it, okay? So that's very important to understand. First of all, emotionally too, right? And so the second part though is this: would learning Mandarin be a good idea? Perhaps yes, right? Perhaps yes. Even if you just learned a little bit of it, then it could actually work in your favor, right? So it's kind of like saying, do you need it? No. Can you have success? Most definitely. Would learning a little bit of Mandarin, even if you took 30 minutes a day or something like that, right? So this is where people really underestimate their time, is that to learn a language, I've really seen time and time again, even if you just do 30 minutes a day for like a year, you're going to be pretty fucking good in a language. I mean, it's not like rocket science, you know, especially if it's just as far as speaking goes. I'm not talking about like writing very well, but as far as in speaking and listening, these kind of things, there's only so many words that people use in everyday conversation and like grammar structures. So you can pretty much master those in a year with like very little study per day, 30 minutes or so. And so would studying Mandarin 30 minutes a day, would that be beneficial? I would say yes, especially if you're gonna mostly be approaching Chinese Malaysian girls, right? If that's the language they speak mostly, and if their English isn't good or it's so-so or something, then of course it would be beneficial to learn it. But is it necessary? No, right? And so this is kind of where you have to ask yourself, like, are you willing to invest time in that for improving that, or is somewhere else better invested? So, for example, would what would be a better investment of your time? Really, that's what you have to ask yourself. So, for example, like I mentioned, you could do 30 minutes a day of Mandarin. That would be relatively good investment. Another thing could be, for example, if you feel like your fashion, you could literally dress like shit and get girl. Here's another reality, right? So say you think that you need to be very well dressed or something like that to get girls, right? In reality, you can be pretty poorly dressed and get girls. I've seen it so many times, and I've done it myself, right? However, therefore, there's no excuse, right? It doesn't really matter what you're wearing. However, that being said, is wearing nicer clothes going to give you an edge? Is it going to improve your first impression on people, right? Then the answer is yes. All you have to, I mean, it's kind of common sense, right? All you have to do is ask yourself, if somebody's like selling you something, or if you just meet somebody for the first time and they're dressed really nicely, whether man or woman, do you feel a little bit different? It's kind of a different experience, right? It's almost, they look professional, or they look well put together, or at least when you see them, you have a different reaction in a way, right? However, if somebody's dressed like, I don't know, something like an old shirt that doesn't fit, and it has like holes in it, and it's like oily, it has like stains from food all over the shirt. You know, he looks like homeless basically. What is your impression? You're thinking like, oh, maybe he's homeless, or maybe he's I don't know, like a vagabond, or like a gypsy or something. I don't know. You know? So and can a guy like that get girls? Fucking yeah, I've seen guys, including myself. This is the kind of funny thing. I've wore really shitty clothes and still made it work out. However, when I wear nicer clothes and when I have a better look, I notice the difference. Like, it's clear that in the beginning they give me more time. They give me more. It's like you make a stronger impression, or at least you there's more of a window in which they give you time to listen. Does that make sense? So for example, if you're dressed like shit, some girls might just reject you at first just because the impression's bad, right? For them personally. However, if you're dressed pretty well, they might give you 10 extra seconds of time because they're like, oh, okay, he looks respectable. He has a respectable image, right? So I'm going to listen to what he's saying. And it doesn't mean that it's like, oh, dressing well, like all of the leads are going to work out and every girl is going to be into you. It just means you have more of a wider net, right? It's the same thing as like learning Chinese. So if you decided to learn 30 minutes of Chinese, is it going to give you superpowers to lay all these Chinese girls and have 100 Chinese girlfriends? Well, the answer is no, right? However, what it will do is it will cast a wider net, right? So the girls that don't speak good English, the ones that are uncomfortable talking in English, the ones who prefer meeting with only Chinese speakers, which are going to be some of them, right? So in other words, you still need game, you still need it, but the things that are going to help you are the things almost that cast a wider net or leave a better impression initially, right? And so it's important. The beliefs, first of all, you have to deal with the emotional and mental aspect of it. And then from there, you have to deal with the actions, right? And so as we mentioned, like here, you say something like in high school, thinking I needed to be cool or handsome to get girls, right? Which is clearly not true because you mentioned later that you've seen like ugly guys get girlfriends, right? I mean, that's, yeah. Right, exactly. Okay, and you said you skipped a grade, so I became. Step, as I mentioned, is just even speaking about it and writing about it, right? That way you can come to grips with it. You can kind of confront these things, right? These feelings or these beliefs and how and why they happened, right? And then really the next step is writing out beliefs that would serve you. Okay, so for example, you're saying that you might act social or something like that, but you don't really feel confident, right? Okay, so basically here, what you're going to do is basically look at it this way. It's almost like you were brainwashed to feel this way, right? By society or by moving a grade up or something like that, or whatever your parents said. All of these things are kind of like brainwashing you in order to think and feel in a certain way, right? And so clearly it works, right? So basically the way I look at it and what I did to myself and what a lot of guys do is it's almost like you want to brainwash yourself the other way. Does that make sense? So in other words, it's like brainwash yourself that like you're the shit, you're amazing, there's no reason why they wouldn't like you, you know? Why wouldn't they not like you? So it's like having the mindset, it's like, why wouldn't they like me? Is sort of the mindset you want, not like, oh, they probably won't like me, right? And so through time, obviously, you have to write these things out. What kind of beliefs or what kind of mindsets would serve you, which are usually the ones opposed to the ones you're saying, right? So not believing I'm good enough, so believing that I'm good enough for anybody, right? Or like deep down inside, I don't deserve these girls. Well, deep down inside, I know I deserve these girls, right? And so basically what you're doing is you're gradually brainwashing yourself in the other direction. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for example, one thing I did is like I was getting, let's see, in the beginning, okay, I was getting blown out a lot, and I also felt that way as you, right? Like, oh, I probably don't deserve these kind of girls, or I probably don't. Maybe I'm never going to get better, or something like this, right? And so what I did is I would write down beliefs that would be useful. It's like I'm going to be persistent, I'm going to be consistent, I have confidence, I'm going to improve day by day, things like this, right? And then here's a really important key, is that I would selectively focus. So what a lot of guys are doing, since I've coached so many guys at this point, what I realize is what I was doing and what a lot of other guys are doing, including yourself, right, is that you are selectively focusing on the negative things, right? So for example, let's say, for example, you go out and you approach 30 girls, for example, okay? And this is what most guys who are like not having success or who are kind of stuck inner game wise or in the game, right? Or beginning or whatnot, what they would say is something like this. They would say, oh, I went out, I did 30 sets. Most of them were, I got blown out or something like that, right? Okay. Okay. However, say me and you went out. Say we did 30 sets each. Say that I got let's say 5 phone numbers out of 30. Okay. And you got, let's just say you got whatever, similar, 5 or 4. Here's the big difference in changing the way you think about dating and your results and your inner game. In the situation that a lot of students go out and they approach 30 girls, say for example, you went out and approached 30, I approached 30, I get 5 phone numbers, you get 5 phone numbers. My reaction would be, oh, cool, yeah, I went out, it was fun, I had a good day, got 5 phone numbers, that I'm going to follow up with. Pretty awesome, some girls that are pretty hot, it was good. And then when you talk about it, you would talk about it in this way, like, oh, I went out, I got blown out most of the sets, it went terribly, I got a few phone numbers. Do you see the difference? Like literally, technically speaking, the same thing happened to us, but it's how you're seeing, how you're thinking about it is what's the problem, right? So the fact that I feel good, oh, I went out, I feel good that I'm taking action. I feel good, I'm confident, I believe in the action, I believe in myself. I took action. We literally got the same results on paper, right? But the fact that I'm in a good vibe, right? I am positive. I'm looking forward to texting the girls. I'm content with the day. But then if you're looking at it in the way that, you're like, oh shit, it was terrible. I remember 10 girls blew me out in a row. If you're looking at it like the negatives or something, if you're looking at it's like looking at the half glass full versus the half glass empty. Have you heard that analogy, right? So it's like some people, they'll see the good and they'll focus on that and kind of brainwash yourself. You can selectively focus on the good things, right? Rather than selectively focusing on what you perceive to be the bad things, right? And so it's this kind of how you talk to yourself, your internal monologue. It can be either a good or bad. It could be you focus on the positives or you focus on really beating yourself up on what you think are the negative things, right? Here's the thing. You want to focus on feeding yourself positive beliefs, right? So what you believe is important, right? How you see things is important. So you want to see things in generally a positive manner, and you want to in other words, you want to come to the plate with an abundance mentality, right? Because if you're not, then you're always looking for what's the problem, why do I suck? You're self-doubting, right? So the way I look at it is even to be okay. So if you're overly critical, say you're a boxer or something, and you don't believe you can win the fight, you're gonna go and get smoked when you get in the ring, right? So I mean, you need at least a baseline of self-belief, right? Without that, then you're just gonna get smoked. You're gonna get, even if you have technique, you're probably just gonna get knocked out, right? Because you're gonna second guess your decisions and things like this, right? However, that being said, that does not mean that you still don't have a realistic view. In other words, that does not mean that you're still not improving. You're positive, but you're also looking to improve too, right? So it's not like you're so brainwashing yourself outside of reality. You're sort of feeding yourself a positive feedback loop based on your actions and your positive reference experiences. But at the same time, you're also aware of areas to improve in, right? Like what could you have done better? So you believe in yourself, you're already enough, and you are improving and you're working to improve. Does that make sense? So it sounds like it's contradicting, but it isn't, because you're inherently you believe in yourself inherently. That's like a core mindset, okay? But at the same time, exteriorly in your actions, you're always looking to improve. Right. So yeah, exactly. So what it means is the reason that you're giving yourself, okay, here's another good way to reiterate this. The reason that you can feed yourself these positive emotions and positive beliefs, the reason that you're able to believe that or able to brainwash yourself is because you're actually taking action and you're actually improving. So for example, you can't just sit at home and brainwash yourself on these things like, oh, I'm good enough to approach any girl, I deserve, dating these girls. I deserve a good dating life. I'm entitled to these kind of things. You can say that, but if you're in your basement I mean, it's not really true, right? Like, it's just delusional, right, in that regard. But the reason why you can feed yourself these positive emotions, positive reframes, these positive frames on you and your social interactions, the reason you can do that is because you're backing it up with action, right? So you're actually following through and doing the things. The times that you should be hard on yourself, so consider it like you're parenting yourself like a child in a way, right? So when the child does his homework, he's learning English and Chinese, for example, or Spanish or mathematics, right? When he does his homework, then you congratulate him, right? And he feels good. And it's a constant feedback loop, right? However, when he does not do the homework, then typically speaking, you're gonna like punish, right? I'm not telling you necessarily need to like punish yourself like a little kid per se, but at the same time, those are the times that you should be critical. Is that, like, for example, when you plan to go out for a day game session or a night game or whatever it is, and you just sit at home and play video games or scroll Instagram or whatever people do to waste their time, right? Then that's appropriate. Then you shouldn't really feel like you're good enough because you're not really following through with your responsibility, your plan, so to speak, right? Yeah. So those are the times. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. And here's the other thing. It's like it's almost also too, you want to condition yourself to enjoy interacting with people too, right? So for example, if you view it like work or something like that, then long term it becomes less sustainable, I would say. However, what I mean by this is actually enjoy talking to people. See them as another person. See them as a, you could say, seeing them as like a companion in life. That sounds kind of corny, but you can see them as like a fellow, just another human being, somebody that's part of the universe, part of your ecosystem. So when you see people and you enjoy interacting with them, right, and you give them a little bit of what would you say, respect, rather than looking at them like work. Like, instead of seeing, what I'm trying to say is, instead of seeing them as like, you know, it's like when you see a dirty house, oh, I've got to clean it, oh, this sucks, oh, I got to do this. If you see it in that way, then it's kind of less sustainable, right? You're going to burn out, or you're just going to sort of hate doing it, right? However, in a healthy way is to see people as people, right? Everybody, when you approach somebody, you never know what's going to happen. That's kind of the beautiful thing too. It's an exciting experience. It's a potential opportunity. So sometimes you approach a girl, you might get a job. Like, this has happened to me. I approached one girl and she mentioned, oh, we need a part-time worker. It pays really well. I was like, oh shit. So I got a job, like a part-time job that paid really high. And another time I approached, it was like, what, I mean, there's just been so many things that have happened. I can't even remember how many, to be honest. Like, you can say, I've gotten discounts at places, I've gotten jobs, I've gotten, obviously, on the other hand, like super hot girlfriends, or, one night stands, or what have you. And so it's always an adventure, right? It's always a potential opportunity. So so view it as more an exciting thing, something that you're happy about, something that it's sort of like a luck of the draw. It's sort of like the wheel of fortune or something, right? You spin it, you never know what's going to happen. $1,000 spits out, or maybe zero, right? Zero is like a blowout or something. So anything can happen. So when you view it that way, the game becomes enjoyable. You enjoy talking to people, and also, you're putting yourself also in just a good vibe, and it's also the healthy way to look at interacting with people. So yeah, so it's very important. Sure, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And each person too is that you want to be like genuinely curious about them, right? That's like another thing. It's like when you're generally interested or curious about somebody, then not only does that make it more engaging to you, but also to them. They're like, oh, this guy seems actually like he cares about me, or he's interested in a way, right? So rather than, so you're going to come off different if you're coming off like, oh, I need to do set number 9, right? And then you're looking at her and you're going through these motions of like a robot. Then it's kind of dehumanizing. It's like you're treating her like a chore, or you're treating her like a task, yeah, or like like a meat puppet or something, like a puppet to suck your cock in or something, right? Stick your cock in, right? Whereas if you look at her just like a person, right? And oh, what, this might be, I mean, at a minimal, this could be an enjoyable conversation. I mean, sometimes some of the days you come home, I mean, of course, getting laid is great and also having girlfriends, but sometimes it's like, okay, think about what could you have been doing? Watching YouTube at home, is that, it can be enjoyable. I like it too. But it's like, is it as memorable as like you're in the street, you're talking to a beautiful girl, you're having a great conversation, right? Or great connection in a way, and maybe it just doesn't work out. Maybe she has a boyfriend, or maybe her parents are right over in the corner or something like that, where it's not going to work out. But still, I mean, you can see the beauty of the moment, the beauty of interacting with another person, and it becomes an enjoyable thing, right? It's not like you need anything, you're just enjoying the moment. It's very meditative in a way, right? It's like fully appreciating the present moment without needing per se anything, right? Yeah. uh, pres- mhm. Precisely. So yeah, these little challenges are something that can help you with like situational confidence, right? um, and a lot of the game, really, you can look at it to this way, like, what is confidence in doing something? So first of all, you have to give yourself a pat on the back, some self-belief. Ultimately, you give yourself confidence, right? It's something that you can either give yourself or strip away from yourself, right? And as we mentioned, there are certain blocks, emotional or mental blocks, based on previous experiences or conditioning, which we kind of went over earlier, right? Like writing that out, dealing with that, reframing your beliefs, reframing your mindsets. But ultimately, also, another part of confidence, other than the initial core confidence we were talking about, another part of it is like situational confidence too, right? Like, it's more in the sense of being competent at something, being good at something, right? So, for example, as you mentioned, you're kind of getting comfortable approaching single girls. However, because you have some competence, you have some ability now, you have some consistency, some experience, right? However, that being said, two sets, or girls that are in two, a group of two or three, you don't have any real confidence. You might have confidence, you believe you can do it, perhaps, right? However, in the situation, you're not really 100% comfortable because you don't have a lot of experience with it. So you really build competence, which creates situational confidence, by doing that thing over and over again and getting used to it and adjusting, right? And so that's where these challenges help a lot, is that when you do, for example, two set challenges, or awkward open challenges, or it could be like going super direct or super indirect. There's all kinds of different challenges you can do, right? Situational challenges. Once you do all of those, then almost no situation, right, that you come upon is going to be a situation you haven't necessarily encountered. I'm not saying that that's. I'm not saying that you're going to do every single situation. That's impossible because the world is complex, right? What I mean is, most of the common situations that you're going to come across are going to be comfortable because you already went through them, right? So you ultimately, what you're doing is sort of training yourself in, with these challenges. You're sort of training yourself in situational confidence, but then also in just showing yourself that you can do this. It's giving you sort of more self belief as well, right? It's proving to yourself, right, that you can do it, and then also building competence at the same time. Is you keep using the same opener over and over. You fell into the old habit of like almost every interaction using the same opener. Yeah, whereas that's not so engaging for the girl and yourself. So yeah, coming in and being a little bit more random, right? Being a little bit more observational, right? Creating. It's sort of like this. Think about it like this. It's like you're manifesting an experience, right? So you're walking up here with like a unique insight, a unique message to the girl, right? But if the message is not unique and it's not inspiring, then there's no real. You're not. It becomes much harder for you to connect with her mental, emotional, physical reality of the day, right? Yeah, sure, of course, yeah. So think about it this way. Let me just give you a analogy. Okay, so for example, say there's some Malaysian guy, he's selling Samsung phones. Okay, in front of the mall or something like that, And if he's like, oh, hey, can you come check out the phone? What do they usually say? They say something like, oh, hey, do you want to sign up for a free phone? Or whatever they usually say. I don't know how they do it, but it's like always the same cheesy thing. And they're like, they look like really needy, like they need you to come in the store, right? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and what you're trying to do is just walk past them as quick as possible, right? Because why? It's because number one, you feel like they're needy or they want something. And number two, it's like you know what they're going to say already because it's like you've already seen this many times, right? So that's kind of what it's like when you keep using the same opener, right? The girl just, you're coming off in the way of that Samsung phone seller guy, right? However, when you come off, say that same guy, he had good body language, right? He was, good eye contact. And he came up to you and he said, wow, cool, your hairstyle is so different than other people I've seen at this mall today. Like you must be into fashion, or are you even Malaysian? Then you'd be like, oh wow, you noticed that? Yeah, actually, I'm doing this and that. I lived abroad for a while, or whatever, right? It becomes an actual conversation because he created engagement in you, right? Versus, oh hey, do you want to buy this phone? It's like you're just kind of like, oh, get away from me, right? No, no, no. I mean, it could be, but what all you're really doing is you want to open the channel, right? It's like, it's sort of like you just got to hit the frequency, right? It's almost like, it's like, what are you trying to do? Like, okay, you're not trying to search Google or YouTube if you don't have the internet yet, right? All you're really trying to do is connect to the Wi-Fi first, and then from there, that's when you do your work on search engine and typing bullshit emails or something, right? So, so that's all you're really trying to do is get that Wi-Fi connection. Right? You're just kind of trying to synchronize with them a little bit, send a message that hits, right?